It's week 4 of the fantasy season, and here are 6 stats that you absolutely need to know before you set your starting lineup here in week 4 of the fantasy season. All right, through the first 3 games of the season, Emeka Egbuka has racked up 21 total targets and 51 PPR fantasy points. He is almost likely to be extremely busy here in week 4 against the Philadelphia Eagles secondary. As we know, Mike Evans is out for this week 4 matchup between the Bucks and the Eagles, and we do have the potential for Chris Godwin to play today. Some reports are indicating that Chris Godwin's season debut is expected in week 4, but also he is still going into the week as questionable. So at the time I'm recording this, I don't know. Maybe, Sterling Shepard is, still going to be the next man up here. But ultimately, what we want to look at is I think a lot of people are kind of worried in a sense to potentially start Egbuka in this matchup because they're scared of the Eagles secondary. And I'm not sneezing at this secondary whatsoever. And most of the defensive pressure, regardless of if Godwin plays or not, is going to lie on Emeka Egbuka today. But still, this Eagles secondary as a whole has given up the 17th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers on the season. It's not like they're ranking, in the top 10 or top 5 as we approach week 4 of the season. And don't get me wrong, I mean, they're going to line up their best corner on Emeka Egbuka more than likely in this game, but I still believe in what's going to be a very competitive matchup. Emeka Egbuka is a player that the Bucks are going to have very heavily involved, especially with the absence of Mike Evans. Ultimately, I think he is still a very strong start here in week 4 of the season. He's averaged 17 fantasy points per game. He is still a very strong wide receiver too, a very strong flex option for you guys who do own him. So don't look at this matchup and completely freak out. The production has absolutely been there through the first 3 weeks of the season for Emeka Egbuka, and I don't expect it to go anywhere here in week 4. All right, Omarion Hampton is set up for a significant amount of touches in week 4 of the season. Last week, he finished with 25 total touches and 24.9 PPR fantasy points. And in week 4, he's going up against a Giants team that's given up the 4th most fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. We know no Najee Harris in this matchup or for the rest of the season as he is headed to IR with that Achilles injury. So right now we are looking at Hassan Haskins as the RB2 and then Kamani Vidal in his second season elevated from the practice squad. And I just don't think either of these running backs are going to be able to eat to the production that Hampton is going to have in week 4 and likely for the rest of the season. But we look at the game script in this week 4 matchup against the Giants. We got Jackson Dart's first NFL start. I think this Chargers defense on the road is going to have a great day. I think that the Chargers in general aren't going to have a massive need to throw the football. They are going to be relying on the run game, on Omarion Hampton. He's going to have a massive amount of volume in this matchup. He could easily exceed the amount of fantasy points he had last week in week 3 against a very good Denver Broncos defense. Put up 70 rushing yards, a rushing touchdown, and had 6 receptions off of 7 targets for 59 receiving yards. And I think in week 4, it's going to be even better. So if you guys own Omarion Hampton, there is no reason whatsoever that he should be on your bench, even if you have to flex him. If he's your RB2, if he's your RB1, I don't care. Omarion Hampton is an absolute must-start player in week 4 of the season. And he should still be considering James Cook as an absolute must-start player as well. He's had 18-plus touches and 20-plus fantasy points in 3 straight games. Buffalo's offensive line is the league leader in run block win rate at 76.6%, and he should absolutely dominate this Saints front 7 defense that has allowed the 7th most fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. This is a smash spot for James Cook. And like I said, if you own James Cook, you're already starting him anyways, but this is arguably the best position he has been in all season long. And once again, I see this game script being one of those game scripts where the Bills are up and at it early against this Saints team at home. This could be a huge day for any of the Bills' offensive players, honestly, but definitely a game where I just don't think they're going to need to throw the football a ton. I wouldn't even be surprised if we see a good amount of Ray Davis in this game as well. But James Cook is an absolute must-start player. No matter what you do, he needs to be in your starting lineup. He has scored 4 touchdowns over the last 3 games. He is a lock in my mind, to score another touchdown in week 4. And that is why I'm headed straight to Underdog to take the over on Cook to score a touchdown in week 4 for all the reasons that we just went over. And don't forget, all new users who sign up on Underdog using promo code THECATCH are getting a free NFL Pick'em to use towards week 4's NFL action. Take that free Pick'em. Take James Cook to score a touchdown here in week 4. And if both of those lines hit, you're going to automatically double your cash entry. And on top of that, Underdog has a new exclusive offer to anyone who signs up using promo code THECATCH. Once you play through $5 on Underdog, you're going to receive $50 in bonus cash to use towards week 4 NFL action. And on top of that, you're also going to receive a 50% deposit match up to $1,000. So make sure you guys sign up using promo code THECATCH. That link is down below. Except I'm taking a strong look at Drake London here in week 4 as the Commanders' defensive front ranks 3rd in run stop win rate. They've done a great job limiting fantasy points to opposing running backs, but they've allowed a lot of big plays through the air and ultimately have come in 25th in terms of rankings against opposing wide receivers. And I think here in week 4, we're finally going to be able to get a big week out of Drake London, who's averaged just 10 fantasy points per game on the season thus far. We haven't seen Michael Penix thrown a touchdown to a wide receiver or a tight end all year long. And I think that here in week 4 at home, as porous as the Falcons offense has looked over the last 2 weeks, I think that they are in a spot to bounce back and have a good game. Drake London, 13.5 fantasy points in week 1, had 15 total targets, and in the last 2 games has combined for just 12 total targets. This could be a spot where Drake London kind of gets back and rolling before this early week 5 bye week for the Falcons. Once again, Michael Penix has not looked good over the past 2 weeks, but this is a home game for the Falcons. I think they can get this offense under control. I think that this is going to be a game just due to the matchup as a whole where the Falcons are going to be forced to throw the football, have a little bit more of a struggle in terms of running the football. So I like this spot for Drake London a lot. I know a lot of you guys out there, a little iffy. Should I start him, right? It's a tough player to bench because you spent such high draft capital on him. Here in week 4, it's still early in the season. Don't forget that. I think he should absolutely be in your guys' starting lineups. Another wide receiver who had a quiet week 3 is Jakobi Meyers of the Las Vegas Raiders, but he still saw 10 plus targets and 12 or more PPR fantasy points in each of the first 2 games this season. And now he's getting a Bears secondary who's given up the 29th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. And they have been particularly very bad against slot wide receivers. So this is a smash spot for Jakobi Meyers, who runs a majority of his snaps out of the slot. Like I said, last week, very frustrating, coincidentally, against a Washington Commanders team who we just talked about, but they allowed a huge day to trade Tucker in week 3. But the first 2 weeks of the season certainly weren't bad, with 12.8 or more fantasy points for Meyers. I know some people kind of looking at this like, is this Trey Tucker's room in terms of like wide receiver room now? Like, no, this is still Meyers' spot. He is the wide receiver 1, just didn't work out in week 3 on the road. Home game against the Bears. I've talked a bit about this matchup throughout the week. I'm expecting points in this one. I'm expecting both passing offenses to have big days overall, and maybe even the run offenses as well. These are just 2 bad defenses. The Raiders not so bad against the run, but definitely bad defenses here in terms of defending opposing wide receivers and the passing game overall. This is going to be a game where both quarterbacks are going to be able to succeed and have a lot of success throwing the football. Still keep the faith here. Jakobi Meyers is still a very strong wide receiver 1 for you guys, wide receiver 2, whatever it may be, here in week 4 of the season. Last of all, Cowboys tight end Jake Ferguson has seen 12 plus targets and scored 16 or more fantasy points in back-to-back games. We know CeeDee Lamb will be sidelined here in week 4 with that ankle injury. And now he gets a Packers defense that is a good defense, don't get me wrong, but they are coming in 27th against opposing tight ends in terms of fantasy points allowed. I've talked a lot about Jake Ferguson this week, but just as a reminder, if you guys don't know this, Jake Ferguson is the tight end 2 in full PPR right now. He is the tight end 1 in fantasy points per game in PPR right now. I've got a lot of questions about Jake Ferguson throughout the course of the week, and Jake Ferguson is an absolute must-start player here in week 6 of the season. Even if you have to flex him, even if you already have another stud tight end, Jake Ferguson is a player who needs to be in your starting lineup. Week 4 matchup here. at home on Sunday Night Football. A good narrative here. Micah Parsons, revenge game. Everybody expecting the Cowboys to come out and have a bad day. And I don't know if they're going to have a great day necessarily or a great night or whatever. But like I said, this Packers defense has been very soft against opposing tight ends. We know CeeDee Lamb is going to miss this game. We know the defense is going to be able to focus on George Pickens. We'll see how things shake out. But ultimately, Jake Ferguson is in a smash spot over the last 2 games. Literally, he has had 26 total targets. You have to start Jake Ferguson if you guys own him here in week 4 of the season. And there you guys have it. There are my 6 stats that you need to know before kickoff here in week 4 of the season, excluding the Steelers-Vikings game. That's going to be an early game. But if you guys need anything else in regards to NFL kickoff today, make sure you drop your comments down below, your questions down below. I'll answer as many as I can before kickoff today. And if you guys are new to the channel, it does me a huge favor if you guys hit that subscribe button on the way out. And with that, I'll say thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. And remember, you saw it here on The Catch.